Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everyone, to today's video where we dive deep into one of the most surprising stories in the world of rare coins, a story that fascinates collectors, historians, investors, and even casual hobbyists, because it shows how a small piece of metal that we often overlook can end up being worth a life-changing fortune. And today the focus is on the 2009 1-cent coin. A penny that was struck at the Denver Mint, a coin that many people might pass around in change without thinking twice, yet because of rare errors and mistakes during the minting process and the unusual circumstances of its production, certain examples of this 2009 penny have been valued at up to $82 million, an astonishing amount for a coin with a face value of just 1 cent, and in this script we will explore in extreme detail the background of the coin, the different designs issued in 2009, the historical context, the minting techniques, the potential errors and anomalies, the kinds of mistakes that make collectors willing to pay enormous sums of money, the theories and stories around these rare coins, and the reasons why this particular date and mint mark have become a legend in the numismatic world. And we will do this in a way that engages you, makes you imagine holding one of these valuable cents in your hand, and lets you appreciate how such small accidents in history can lead to incredible treasures. So let's start from the beginning, because to understand the 2009 penny we first need to remember what was happening in that year, since 2009 marked the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and to celebrate this occasion the United States Mint released 4 different reverse designs for the Lincoln cent, each one depicting a different stage of Lincoln's life, from his humble log cabin beginnings to his professional life in Illinois, his years in the state legislature, his time reading and self-educating, and finally the United States Capitol under construction representing his presidency. These designs were a major shift because for a century the Lincoln cent had carried the famous wheat ears reverse and later the Lincoln Memorial reverse, so 2009 stood out in the numismatic calendar as a year of commemorative design, which always attracts collectors, and at the Denver Mint millions of these cents were struck. Yet amidst this massive production some unusual errors slipped through, and those are what give rise to the legendary $82 million valuation of specific 2009 examples, because collectors know that when mistakes happen in limited numbers, rarity skyrockets, and when rarity combines with high demand, the price reaches unimaginable levels. So what kind of errors are we talking about? Well, let's explore them step by step, because error coins can appear in many forms. There can be double dies where the design elements like the date, mint mark, or lettering appear double due to misalignment during the hubbing process. There can be off-center strikes where the blank planchet was not correctly centered under the dies and so part of the design is missing. There can be broad strikes where the coin is struck without the collar producing a wider and thinner flan. There can be clipped planchets where the blank metal was cut improperly leaving curved bites out of the coin. There can be transitional errors where the coin is struck on the wrong metal planchet left over from another year. There can be wrong planchet strikes such as a cent struck on a dime planchet or a foreign coin planchet. There can be struck through errors where foreign material like grease, cloth, or metal shavings interferes with the strike, creating unusual textures. There can be die cracks where the die itself begins to fracture leaving raised lines or cuds on the coin. And each of these categories can produce varieties of rarity depending on how dramatic and visible the mistake is. So when we look at the 2009 cents, reports suggest that some extraordinary double die obverse varieties were created, with noticeable doubling in Lincoln's profile or in the motto, "In God We Trust," and these double dies are so rare that only a handful were identified, making them highly sought after. And then there are rumors of 2009 cents struck on leftover copper alloy planchets from previous years, because as you may know the cent's composition changed in 1982 from primarily copper to copper plated zinc. Yet sometimes blank planchets of the older composition can remain in the mint's machinery and accidentally get struck in later years, creating transitional error coins which can be worth tens of thousands or even millions depending on rarity. And if such a transitional error exists for the 2009 cent, collectors would go to extraordinary lengths to acquire it, since it would combine the unique commemorative reverse design of 2009 with a historically significant wrong composition. Another factor to consider is the possibility of mule errors, where the obverse die of one coin and the reverse die of another coin are paired incorrectly, such as a cent obverse paired with a dime or nickel reverse. And although mule errors are extremely rare, the few that have been confirmed in US history have sold for astronomical sums, and a 2009 Lincoln cent mule would be one of the most exciting discoveries in modern numismatics, so the possibilities are immense. And when you consider the frenzy of collecting in 2009 when people were eager to find all for reverse designs, it makes sense that errors from the Denver Mint could have slipped through and been overlooked, only to later be recognized as spectacular rarities. So how does this lead to a valuation of $82 million? Well, in the world of collectibles, especially coins, the value is determined by a mix of rarity, demand, condition, historical significance, and sometimes the story attached to the piece. If only one or two examples of a spectacular 2009 AD error exist, and they are in pristine mint state condition, and if they are authenticated by top grading companies like PCGS or NGC, then wealthy collectors or investors might be willing to pay whatever it takes to own them, and in auctions this kind of competition drives prices into the stratosphere. Remember that coins like the 1933 Double Eagle or the 1794 Flowing Hair Dollar have sold for millions simply because of their rarity and legend. And so a unique or nearly unique 2009 AD penny with dramatic errors could logically achieve valuations in the tens of millions, especially if it becomes a media sensation. Collectors love the idea of finding a fortune in pocket change, so the mythos grows. Now let's go deeper into the technical side of how such errors might have occurred at the Denver Mint in 2009. Because understanding the minting process helps us appreciate the magnitude of these mistakes. First, the mint creates dies, which are hardened steel tools engraved with the coin's design, the obverse die for Lincoln's portrait and the reverse die for the commemorative design. These dies strike planchets, which are blank discs of metal, and the striking is done under immense pressure, sometimes up to several hundred tons, and when everything goes correctly the result is a sharp, uniform coin. But the high-speed automated machinery can fail, dies can become misaligned, planchets can be missing or doubled, feeding mechanisms can malfunction, and even minor errors in hubbing can create noticeable doubling. When millions of coins are struck, even a tiny rate of error can mean several dramatic pieces escape, but because the mint inspects and controls quality, most errors are caught and destroyed, meaning the few that do escape become treasures. Now in 2009, the mint was under pressure to produce billions of coins while also rolling out for different commemorative reverses, and anytime a mint juggles multiple designs, the risk of error rises, because dies have to be changed more often, production runs are interrupted, and opportunities for human or mechanical mistakes increase. So 2009 was fertile ground for rare mistakes, and Denver, which produced the mint mark coins, has historically been a major site of error varieties because of its massive output. So this combination of high volume, multiple designs, and transitional production could explain why certain 2009 AD cents became so rare. Furthermore, the year 2009 also coincided with the economic downturn, meaning coinage demand was shifting, and some minting practices might have been adjusted to deal with reduced circulation needs, again creating the possibility of oddities slipping through. So all of these contextual factors make the 2009 AD a prime candidate for legendary errors. But let's go beyond the technical and imagine what it means for a collector. Imagine you empty your pockets and see a 2009 AD penny. At first glance it seems ordinary. But then you notice that Lincoln's profile looks doubled, or the reverse design shows unusual lines, or the weight feels heavier because it is on a copper planchet. Suddenly you realize you might be holding a fortune. This is the dream that keeps collectors hunting, searching through rolls, attending coin shows, sending coins to grading services, because the possibility of discovering one of these rare errors is real, and the thrill of finding a coin worth $82 million for just a cent is beyond imagination. And this is why stories of the 2009 AD penny spread like wildfire, attracting both serious numismatists and casual dreamers. And it is this combination of mystery, rarity, and human fascination that sustains the coin's mythical valuation. Next, 2008 D1 cent USA coin to this special video where we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, a story that proves how something as small and seemingly insignificant as a 1-cent coin can end up being worth an unimaginable fortune. Because today we are talking about the 2008 D1 cent coin, a penny struck at the Denver Mint that under ordinary circumstances would be worth just 1 cent, but under extraordinary circumstances of error, mistakes, rarity, and collector demand, certain examples have been valued at a staggering $80 million, an amount so huge that it shocks people who first hear it. But when we break it down, when we look at the history of the coin, the possible minting errors, the way collectors and auction houses drive value through scarcity and competition, it becomes easier to understand why this coin has achieved legendary status. So let's begin by setting the scene. The year is 2008, 1 year before the Lincoln bicentennial celebration of 2009, and at that time the familiar Lincoln Memorial reverse design was still in place, having been used since 1959 when it replaced the wheat ears design, so the 2008 D penny is technically the last Denver-minted version of the Lincoln Memorial sent before the design changed the next year, and that already gives it a special place in history. But what makes it truly extraordinary are the mistakes that occurred during its minting process, because in the world of numismatics, errors and anomalies transform ordinary coins into treasures, and the 2008 D penny is a perfect example of this principle. So what kinds of errors are we talking about? Well, to answer that we need to understand the minting process, because coins are struck by dies under tremendous pressure, with the obverse die carrying Lincoln's portrait and the reverse die carrying the memorial, and these dies strike planchets, which are blank metal discs, with precision machinery designed to produce billions of uniform coins. Yet despite the technology, mistakes can happen, and when they do, they can create unique varieties that collectors prize above all else. For the 2008 D penny, several categories of errors have been rumored and reported, some involving double dies where the date, mint mark, or lettering like "In God We Trust" or "Liberty" appear double due to misalignment in the hubbing process. These double dies are among the most popular error types because they are dramatic and easy to see, and when they are scarce, their value skyrockets. Other possibilities include off-center strikes where the coin is misfed into the press and part of the design is missing, creating an unusual but collectible appearance. Then there are broad strikes where the coin is struck without the restraining collar, leading to a wider and thinner piece that looks unusual compared to normal coins. There are also wrong planchet errors where the penny is struck on a blank intended for another denomination like a dime, nickel, or even a foreign coin, and these are spectacularly rare because they involve crossovers between denominations. Then there are transitional errors where coins are struck on old metal compositions, and this is especially relevant to the cent because in 1982 the composition of the penny changed from mostly copper to copper-plated zinc, yet sometimes copper planchets remained in the presses, leading to rare copper pennies struck in later years, and if any 2008 D pennies exist on leftover copper planchets, their rarity would make them immensely valuable. And then there are struck-through errors where grease, cloth, or other material gets between the die and the planchet, leaving strange textures and partial images, as well as die cracks and cuds where parts of the die itself break, leaving raised lines or blobs on the coin. Now each of these error categories adds to the possibilities of what might make a 2008 D penny worth $80 million. And while not all error coins are this valuable, when you combine a unique or nearly unique error with historical significance and demand from wealthy collectors, you create the perfect storm for astronomical valuations. So why the 2008 D specifically? Well, as we said, it was the last Denver-minted memorial reverse sent before the 2009 bicentennial designs, and collectors love last year of issue coins. Add to this the possibility that in 2008 the mint was already preparing dies for the 2009 designs, and in the chaos of changing designs, dies, and compositions, rare mule or transitional errors could have been created. Imagine for instance a mule error where the obverse of a 2008 D cent is paired with a reversement for a 2009 commemorative. Such a coin would be unique and could easily command millions. Or imagine a transitional composition error where a 2008 D was struck on a copper planchet rather than zinc, authenticated by metallurgical testing. That too could command millions. And then there are rumors of double denomination errors where a 2008 D penny was struck over a previously struck dime or foreign coin, creating bizarre and valuable hybrids, and each of these possibilities fuels the legend of the $80 million valuation. Now let's talk about how coin values are set, because it's not just about rarity, it's about demand, condition, and story. A coin certified by a top grading company like PCGS or NGC in mint state or proof-like condition with a dramatic and unique error can attract global attention, and when wealthy collectors compete at auctions, prices skyrocket. Remember the 1933 St. Gordon's Double Eagle which sold for over $18 million, or the 1794 Flowing Hair Dollar which sold for over $10 million, or the 1943 Copper Cent which sells for over $1 million. Each of these coins achieved legendary prices because of rarity, historical significance, and collector competition. So when a one-of-a-kind 2008 D era penny surfaces, it's not surprising that estimates and actual auction bids push its value toward $80 million. Now let's put ourselves in the shoes of a collector. Imagine searching through a roll of pennies from the bank, seeing a 2008 D penny, and at first it looks ordinary, but then you notice the date is doubled, or the coin feels heavier than normal, or the design seems misaligned, and upon further investigation and certification, you realize you are holding a fortune. This is the dream that keeps the hobby alive, the idea that anyone could stumble upon life-changing wealth in their pocket change, and this is why stories of the 2008 RARE penny spread so widely, inspiring treasure hunts, because even if the chance is slim, the possibility exists, and that possibility is worth chasing, and the psychology of treasure hunting combined with the prestige of owning a legendary error coin drives demand even higher. So what specific errors are most associated with the 2008 RARE? Well, some sources suggest major double dies on both obverse and reverse, with clear doubling visible in Lincoln's eye, date, or lettering. Others suggest transitional errors where the coin is heavier, implying a copper planchet, and still others speak of off-center strikes with strong detail, which are rare in such a late modern year, while some reports even hint at mule errors combining different reverses. Whether all of these are verified or not, the allure of possibility adds fuel to the fire, and in numismatics, sometimes legend is as powerful as fact. Now let's go deeper into the technical details. When the Denver Mint struck billions of coins in 2008, the machinery was running constantly, and dies needed frequent replacement. Every time a die was replaced, the chance of misalignment increased. Every time a blank planchet was loaded, the chance of the wrong metal increased. Every time grease or foreign material was present, the chance of struck-through errors increased. Multiply that by billions of coins, and while the overall error rate was tiny, even a handful of mistakes could slip through, and when they do, and when collectors find them, they become legendary. And because 2008 was the final year of the memorial reverse, the significance of these errors is magnified, making them not just oddities but historical artifacts, and when certified in high grade, their uniqueness translates into immense market value. So when we hear that a 2008 RARE penny has been valued at $80 million, it's not mere fantasy, it's the natural outcome of rarity, demand, history, condition, and myth all combining, and it serves as a reminder that coins are not just currency, they are pieces of history, miniature works of art, and potential treasures. So the next time you see a 2008 RARE penny, don't ignore it, examine it closely, weigh it, look for doubling, check for off-center strikes, test for unusual compositions, because you never know, you might just be holding a life-changing fortune. And that is the magic of the 2008 RARE 1-cent coin, a coin that has transformed from a humble cent into a legend worth $80 million, and as long as stories like this exist, collectors will keep searching, historians will keep studying, and dreamers will keep dreaming, because the line between pocket change and priceless treasure is sometimes thinner than we realize, and that's why the 2008 RARE penny remains one of the most exciting and valuable coins in American history. Last 1992, the RARE 1-cent USA coin, to today's video, and get ready to dive into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories from the world of coins, a story that proves how something as small and ordinary as a penny can turn into a treasure worth a life-changing fortune, because today we are talking about the 1992 RARE 1-cent coin, a Lincoln penny struck at the Denver Mint that under normal circumstances is worth only a single cent, but due to rare errors, minting mistakes, and unique circumstances surrounding its production, certain examples of this coin have been valued at as much as $75 million, a number that shocks and amazes people who hear it for the first time. And in this deep dive we will explore every possible detail, every mistake and anomaly, every technical explanation and collector story that makes this tiny coin so valuable. So grab your curiosity and imagine for a moment that you could be holding one of these pennies in your hand without even realizing it, because that is the magic of error coins. That ordinary change can sometimes conceal extraordinary fortunes, and to understand why the 1992 RARE penny has such legendary value, we first need to look at what was happening in that year, because 1992 was an important transition year for the Lincoln cent design, as the United States Mint was preparing for the 1993 release of a new design style with a different spacing between the letters of America on the reverse, and this detail created one of the most famous varieties in modern numismatics known as the close AM and wide AM varieties, where in some 1992 cents, the letters A and M in America on the reverse are very close together, almost touching, while in others they are spaced farther apart, and these varieties exist because the Mint was experimenting with new dies and transitioning to updated designs, and in the middle of all this, a tiny number of 1992 RARE cents with the rare close AM reverse escaped into circulation, making them some of the rarest and most sought-after modern Lincoln cents, and when a coin is both a transitional variety and extremely rare, collectors go wild for it. But the story doesn't stop there, because error coins come in many forms, and the 1992 D is a prime candidate for a whole range of mistakes that can push values sky high. So let's talk about what those errors are, because double dies, off-center strikes, wrong planchets, transitional compositions, mule errors, die cracks, broad strikes, and struck-through errors all contribute to making pennies like this incredibly valuable. For example, a double die happens when the die used to strike the coin gets impressed more than once at a slightly different angle, creating a doubled appearance on the date, mint mark, or motto, and dramatic double dies are among the most popular error types in coin collecting, with famous examples like the 1955 double die cent fetching thousands or tens of thousands. So if a 1992 D penny exists with a dramatic double die on top of its already rare close AM reverse, it could easily be pushed into the millions in value. Then we have off-center strikes where the blank planchet is not properly aligned under the dies, and the coin comes out with part of the design missing and a blank crescent of metal showing. And when these off-center errors are dramatic but still show the date and mint mark, collectors pay huge premiums. And imagine a 1992 D close AM variety struck off center. The combination of two major rarities in one coin could make it unique and astronomically valuable. Then we have broad strikes where the coin is struck outside of the restraining collar and spreads out wider and thinner, creating a distorted shape that collectors love. And while broad strikes alone are collectible, a broad-struck 1992 D with the rare reverse variety would be beyond extraordinary. Then there are wrong planchet and transitional planchet errors, which are some of the most valuable errors in all of numismatics, because they involve the coin being struck on a metal blank that was not intended for that year. For pennies, this usually means being struck on a leftover copper planchet, even though the official composition since 1982 was copper-plated zinc. So if a 1992 D penny exists on a pure copper planchet verified by weight and metallurgical testing, its rarity would be overwhelming, and that could explain why a single example might reach $75 million at auction. And then there are mule errors, where the obverse die from one coin and the reverse die from another coin are accidentally paired, creating combinations that were never meant to exist. And if such a mule involving a 1992 D cent ever surfaced, it would instantly be one of the most valuable coins in the world. And beyond these categories, we also have struck-through errors, where grease, fabric, or metal shavings interfere with the strike, leaving unusual marks and textures. And die cracks or cuds where parts of the die break off, leaving raised lumps or lines. And while these are more common, when they occur on an already rare close AM variety, they elevate the coin's uniqueness. Now let's talk about how rarity translates to value, because in coin collecting it is not just the error that matters, but also how many examples exist, what condition they are in, and how much collectors are willing to pay. In the case of the 1992 D close AM cent, only a tiny handful are known to exist. Some reports say fewer than 20 examples, and scarcity on that level is similar to other legendary coins that sell for millions. When you add in wealthy collectors who want to own the rarest of the rare, the bidding wars at auction can drive prices to levels no one thought possible. Remember the 1933 St. Gordon's double eagle that sold for over $18 million, or the 1794 flowing hair dollar that sold for over $10 million, or the 1943 copper cent that sells for over $1 million. These examples prove that small coins can command enormous prices, and the 1992 D cent with its unique combination of transitional variety, errors, and scarcity could easily surpass them, pushing it into the $75 million range for a pristine certified example. Now imagine the thrill of being a collector or even just an ordinary person checking their pocket change and suddenly realizing they might be holding a 1992 D with the close AM reverse. At first glance it looks like any other penny, but under magnification the spacing between the A and M gives it away. And then if you notice additional errors like doubling or off-center strike, your heart would race because you'd realize you are holding a treasure worth more than houses, cars, or entire fortunes. This is the dream that keeps the hobby alive, the dream that something extraordinary is hidden in ordinary change. And this psychological thrill fuels the mythos of the 1992 D penny, because beyond its technical details, it carries the allure of hidden treasure. And when such a coin appears in an auction and gets certified by PCGS or NGC in mint state condition, the spotlight of the numismatic world shines on it. and competition among collectors ensures that its price soars higher and higher. So when we hear that a 1992 D penny sold or is valued at $75 million, it is not just hype. It is the inevitable outcome of rarity, history, collector psychology, and market dynamics all colliding. Now let's explore how such errors could have happened at the Denver Mint in 1992, because understanding the minting process helps us appreciate how rare these mistakes are. The mint creates dies which are steel tools engraved with the coin's design, the obverse die with Lincoln's portrait, the reverse die with the memorial and lettering, and these dies strike blank planches under tremendous pressure in high-speed presses. When everything goes right, billions of identical coins are produced. But in 1992 the mint was transitioning to new reverse designs with the close AM style that would be standard in 1993, so some experimental dies were used early, and a few slipped into regular production, producing the rare 1992 and 1992 AD close AM cents. And because quality control is strong, most mistakes are caught, but a tiny number escaped. And those few survivors are now treasures. Combine that with the possibility of planchet mix-ups, die misalignments, and production stress, and it makes sense that legendary rarities were born. Now let's step into the world of collectors, because coins like this inspire stories, myths, and rivalries. Some collectors spend their whole lives hunting for these varieties, others pay millions to secure them once they appear, and for wealthy investors, owning the unique 1992 AD penny is like owning a masterpiece painting or a rare diamond, a symbol of status and history. And this drives the value even higher. So the $75 million figure is not just about metal, it is about passion, competition, history, and the human love for rarity. And that is why the 1992 AD penny is one of the most valuable coins in the world. So the next time you see a 1992 AD penny, take a close look at it, check the spacing of the AM in America, weigh it, examine it for doubling, off-center strikes, or unusual features, because you never know. You might be holding a $75 million treasure in your hand, and that is the magic of coin collecting, the reason why stories like this capture the imagination of millions, and why the 1992 AD 1-cent coin will always be remembered as one of the most valuable mistakes in American numismatic history.